Now I'd like to talk a little bit about my past and how it is that I came to be delivering the kind of work that I am today. So looking at my professional development really as an educator, which is how I prefer to describe myself. I came into youth work as a part-time youth worker back in the late 1980s. I undertook a part-time training course, and even on that training course I remember delivering a workshop on international youth work or youth exchange work, as early on in my career as a youth worker I organised a youth exchange with a group from Wandsworth and a group in what was then West Germany, a place called Sonnenberg. So really I was delivering training before I'd qualified as a full-time youth worker, which I did in 1989. I went to Thames Polytechnic and I achieved a certificate in youth and community studies, which was then and still is a JNC recognised professional qualification. So in 1989 I became a full-time professionally qualified youth worker. I initially held a post in Fulham, an area called Sands End. It was the Sands End Detached Youth Project, where I had a small staff team of about 6 part-time sessional staff, but substantive sessional staff, and I was responsible there for team training and the development, individual development, professional development of my team. I was there for 5 or 6 years, I think, during which time I delivered a fair amount of internal training around issues such as leadership, working with young people, engaging young people, communication skills, teamwork, international youth work, etc. I took a break. Let's think, I'm jumping the gun, sorry. I became part of the ILEA Training the Trainers panel. This was towards the very end of Ilya's life, 1990. So at the very end I was involved in Ilya's youth service training unit, delivering one-off workshops around international youth work, working with young men and detached youth work. So I already undertook training and qualified as a trainer for the ILEA. I was also involved for a long period of time, still am, with an organisation called Tent City. Tent City was, because this side of the organisation had to close about 8-9 years ago. Tent City was an organisation that ran 2 major youth camps in London, one in Shepherd's Bush and one on Hackney Marsh, where we would accommodate visitors from all over the world, mainly young people, young adults, but any age group. I was the managing director of Tent City Limited, and I had responsibility for training the 2 teams which ran the campsites. The average age of those teams was 24, 25. They were very young volunteers with a core team which was paid. My role was to train those 2 teams, and I was involved in that, again on a part-time basis, for 12 or 13 years. I took a break from youth work from about 1995 for nearly 3 years, and I went into teaching English as a second language. So I achieved a certificate in TESLA, the equivalent of what is now CELTA, and I worked firstly in Haringey and then for the British Refugee Council, delivering vocational training courses principally in health and social care, but I ran English support classes for a variety of vocational subjects, teaching, accounting, as I've said, health and social care, childcare. So I was responsible for delivering a framework of qualification training for the British Refugee Council in those related to those subject areas. Specifically, I was delivering MVQ level 2 and level 3 in English, which I was responsible for. I ran the department, I prepared materials, I designed the framework, I designed, delivered and evaluated that framework. I went back into youth work at the end of the 90s, mid to late 90s, and I worked at a project. I worked in Wandsworth, for Wandsworth Council, Wandsworth Youth Service. I became the voluntary sector development worker in the south of the borough, in Tooting and Balham, where I was responsible for delivering, for working in partnership with the voluntary sector and supporting many small voluntary sector groups in delivering youth work programs, a variety of organisations and a variety of programs. And again, I was responsible for training many of those organisations in the basics of youth work, in delivering residential activities. So again, a lot of work around child protection, risk assessment, planning and delivering activities. So I had quite a training role within that. I decided to go into training in a full-time capacity at the beginning of the millennium, I suppose, 2002, 2003. And 2004 I attended a training of trainers course in Europe. It was specifically designed to train trainers to deliver programs within what was then the youth program and now the Youth in Action program. It was very interesting attending that training. I was able to really undertake an audit of the skills I already had and assess the areas where I needed to develop. And it was quite a lengthy training course altogether, over 3 separate periods. It was 30 days, and it culminated in delivering a training course at international level alongside 2 colleagues also on the course. Really from there, in terms of international youth work, I have to say that, or delivering training at international youth work level, I've never really looked back. If referring to my personal profile, which is an attached document, from that it's clear that I've been very privileged to deliver a lot of training at European level, both to young people and to adults. So I've continued with that to this day.